maximum 30 minutes, because we are a bit under pressure with the many activities that we have to do, but we still wanted to speak to all of you as every 2 weeks. So today we will discuss about, obviously, the updates from the last 2 weeks. We have a couple of really cool things to let you know. And then we'll deep dive in political topics, because many of you asked us, what do you think about this pro-democracy movement that are popping up everywhere? What do you think about Hong Kong? What's going on in Iran? And
I think you already gave the spoiler by the pro-democracy movements. Obviously, your position is pretty clear, but yeah.
Yeah, but I'm trying to hide it. And then we're gonna probably do a quick overview on LGBTQ plus rights as well, because we received many questions about the topic, and so we said, okay.
And women's rights as well, and campaigns on women's rights.
That was the last one.
I love the fact, actually it was the first one this morning, and I love the fact that every single week we are asked about women's rights.
Yeah, it's true. It's really a recurring topic. It's like really important for our community. So we are live on YouTube as well.
Everything is good and working.
Amazing. So for those that do not know why they're here, maybe do you wanna give a 1 minute pitch about now?
1 minute to start, but I'll try. So Andrea and I pre-launch now, which is a global movement. So it's a movement that is present everywhere in the world. We hope in every single country soon. We are in every single continent so far. With the idea that you have some global issues, climate change, fiscal justice, and others, that cannot be solved by countries alone. So if you think of climate change, it's obvious. No country or even region like the European Union, the African Union, or others can solve this on their own. And for this, we need to all act together. So now comes with the idea that with millions of citizens from all across the world, we can push forward concrete solutions, because solutions exist, to global issues in every single country, in every single continent. So obviously, we just pre-launched, we're not even completely live yet. This will be on the 1st of January. So we won't start with every single country in the world, although I would love to, it would be a bit hard. So what we will do is we will start with a few strategic countries for each campaign. So I'm way over a minute, but I'll continue, it's fine. So
for this time, it's fine.
So last week, we announced that the first few campaigns we will launch will be the first one on women's rights, the second one on fiscal justice, and the third one on climate change. They are hyper-specific, but we'll let you know on the 1st of January exactly what they are. A few of you already know those that are advising us on them. So for each campaign, we will launch them in at least 3 different countries on 3 different continents. The idea being that we want to test different campaign methods across the world for different campaigns so that we can actually see what works. So for example, a referendum works very well in Colombia. It's fairly easy to go referendums in Colombia. Whereas, civil disobedience might work better in the UK. And then in Hong Kong, marches and protests might be more efficient. So we will test this for the first year. And after this, we'll launch way more campaigns in way more countries.
Amazing recap in just a few sentences about what we do. As you can see, the concept is still developing. It's not easy because we are the first one trying to do something at this scale and with this breadth of topic. So I'm sure that we're gonna improve the way to explain it and so on. If you have any suggestions, just shoot us an email. And I think that now the best thing to do, because I suppose that many of you actually already knew what now was, is to discuss about the updates of the last 2 weeks, because we have a pretty exciting news.
Just before you do that, and don't hesitate to ask you questions in the meanwhile. I'm monitoring YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and that's it.
See, if you see us looking at another screen, is because we have several tools on. So, best update of the 2 weeks. We are now officially on every single continent. We were still missing Africa 2 weeks ago, despite the fact that we had many contacts, but still no one officially was part of now. And now we do. We have the first president is Zambia, and now we are expanding it to Mozambique and a few other countries. So we can finally say that we are not only a global movement on paper, but actually we are fully a global movement. So we have people representing now in every single continent on this planet.
And the pretty cool thing is we already have some volunteers in a few countries, including, for example, Costa Rica, that want to organize now conventions next year. So we haven't even launched, but we already have now conventions on the way, which is pretty cool.
Well, at least we will try. But yeah, we have many things going on, despite the fact that the team is really small, because as you might have noticed, if you subscribe, we are still setting up the volunteer infrastructure because we want to make sure that we do not waste time of anyone. So we all the volunteers to take part, but so far it's only the two of us, and sometimes someone taking a bit of the burden off our shoulders, but the team is small. So despite the fact that we can't do everything at the same time, we already reached this amazing milestone. For us, it was not even expected, to be already in every continent at this stage after 1 month of the pre-launch. And with this comes also the more less emotional but still really important achievement of having fundraised 24,000 euros in memberships. Because as you know, if you have checked our website, we decided to go for memberships right at the beginning. Why? For two main reasons. One is that we believe that if you really want to affect change, you need to be self-sustainable as a movement. So you can't keep on asking for money around or looking for donors, because then it becomes the main focus of our activities. It makes you less independent. And so we actually want to be fully able to run on our own legs with a kind of Spotify, Netflix model, right? So people contribute a bit, everyone contribute a bit, and you get access to some, exclusive content, some way to participate that is only for members, and you ensure that actually the machine can work professionally.
And the really cool thing actually is that within the first year, of operations, we plan on being fully financially self-sustainable based on membership. So that means that we would be completely independent from any big donor, foundation or other, which is super important because it means we can plan campaigns, plan activities, which is often hard in a movement. So we're very excited about this as well.
Absolutely. And the second really cool thing is that don't worry if you cannot afford to participate. So first of all, as of now, we have only one standard, let's say, pricing. There is a crowdfunding request. There is a bit tailored more probably on Europe because we started from here. But the idea is to open, and that's it's going to happen from January, different websites with different pricing for each continent, each country, and so on. So for you, we always set it against the cappuccino index. So when we say if you can afford a cappuccino in your country, you can afford to join now, but this will change obviously from country to country. And we also allow for people to join without paying because
no, so basically the people who are joining have the option between paying a standard membership or paying a bit more. It's the blue membership, so that they can sponsor others. And we've been so surprised because so many people actually gave more to sponsor one or more other members. Regardless of whether we had this or not, if someone cannot afford a membership, we will obviously give it for free. Now it's completely inclusive. It's just, we're trying to make all of the different things function. It's just that we want to be able to be self-sustainable. So those are the recommended pricing.
Absolutely. So I think this was the update on the fundraising. So we still have 6,000 euros to fundraise before the end of the month. So if you want to chip in, if you are unsure, we understand, you can also wait, but will be really appreciated because we are starting to look in new tools and new, let's say, members and stuff. So if you want to chip in, it's amazing. Let's now go to the last update, if I'm right, about the last 2 weeks. There is partnership. Colombe, you want to tell us about something about partnership?
I really want to tell you something about partnership. So, as we've said multiple times, we will launch free campaigns in 2020, but we don't intend on launching it alone. So in many of the countries that we're considering, there's already incredible NGOs and activists and sometimes politicians and business leaders doing a great job. And so we intend on creating partnerships. Over the last 2-3 months, we've been having meetings and talking to people from all over the world, a bit in every sector. So, from the commission to photographs to artists to local politicians and so on, to see what we can do together. And so I thought I would tell you quickly about 2 people we just spoke to that are very cool. The first one,
very inspiring as well.
Yeah, the first one is a youth campaigner from Pakistan who, if you subscribe to our newsletter, you'll see we just shared the link. is creating a global campaign on youth political participation. So she noticed that basically across the world, you don't have a lot of youth representatives. And it's something we noticed in our past political data as well. And that considering the fact that a big part of the world population is young, we should be represented. And this is felt particularly on topics like climate change, but not only. And so she's starting this petition to install quotas around the world. So her aim is in more than 100 countries on youth for electoral lists. So we were discussing how she's going about it because she's also starting a global campaign. And she has a petition on change.org called Youth Quotas. So I invite you all to go and check it out. It's very, very cool.
So first, a potential partnership from Pakistan.
Exactly. And the second one we literally just got out of the call with is Thomas from Munich. He's a photographer and an activist, and he started the One World Flag concept, which is basically the idea of having a symbol of unity for the world. And you should go and check it out on Instagram. It's and they also have a website. It's a blue circle to represent Earth, and the background is completely transparent so that it adapts because the world is diverse. So we're just talking with many people and activists about our campaigns to see what we can do in the partnerships. So remember, our campaigns are on women's rights, fiscal justice, and climate change. Those are the first 3 campaigns. If you have people you think we should reach out to, don't hesitate to send it our way. And it will be incredibly useful.
Maybe some experts on lighting, even our rooms are always a bit dark in the night. I don't know why. But yeah, so that was a short update on partnership. So as you, Colombe, said, we are really pushing hard on that side. So I would say this was basically the organizational update. Now let's move to the political topics. They are actually the one why that I think are bringing people here, and actually me and Colombe investing all our time in this. And we decided to cover especially 2 topics today. So the first one is the pro-democracy, pro-people message. Let's say given all the protests that are going on throughout the world, Hong Kong, Iran, and so on, what do we stand and what can we do in this instance? And the second one will be more about global rights. Concerning the pro-democracy aspect, maybe Colombe give a little intro and then I will take the 2 examples.
So before doing any live, we normally ask on Instagram what you want us to cover. And today we had a lot of points on Hong Kong, Iraq, Iran, and other countries in the world, or regions in the world with pro-democracy protests, and where the government is cracking down extremely heavily. So I will go in more details, but obviously, we're a pro-democracy movement, and with as basic principles the idea of a free, open, and fair society. So we completely stand with those protests. As soon as now is live in those countries, as soon as we have members in those countries, this is something that we will participate in, and that we will try to provide an organizational, organizational collaboration with. Rights and democracy are some of the key battles for now across the world and for the world as a whole, including for global democracy. So we can only applaud the bravery and boldness of protesters from Hong Kong to Iraq and every other country.
Absolutely. And talking about Hong Kong in particular, I mean, now is a few months that the situation is continually difficult and increasingly aggressive, especially from the police towards the protesters. And as you saw probably in the latest development, there have been a siege of a university where protesters were barricaded in. And I mean, this I think is probably just the tip of the iceberg of a process that's now is moving the whole world. But where actually the world should have more of a say, I must say, because we are all really happy to share links and and say that we like Hong Kong. But the truth is that those poor protesters are left alone, at least officially. That not many countries took a position on the matter. The US just recently made a vote saying about Hong Kong, but I mean, I didn't hear much from Europe at all, for instance. And this because people are obviously scared of repercussion, Chinese economic repercussion.
A few European countries, if I'm not mistaken, actually said that both parties should refrain from violence, which is an extremely, extremely, extremely weak statement when you see the amount of violence from the police and the lack of response from the government to actually respond to protest demands.
And I mean, this is something you told me once, right? If you're fighting for freedom, you cannot be held accountable as much as the oppressing side, right? So of course, violence should be always the last resort. They should be avoided. But I mean, these people are also fighting for their lives in a way, right? So on Hong Kong, what I can say, and I say today in my social media feed as well, is that there's a really interesting development for a movement like now, because in 2 years, there will be Chinese local elections. Now, putting China and elections together might sound really weird, but actually, it's the only democratic exercise that Chinese people have access to. And then basically the idea of electing local representatives that then, through a kind of indirect democracy, will elect party leaders and other representatives up the ladder. And interesting enough, independent candidates are allowed in these Chinese local elections, meaning that any Chinese citizen, and I think the rule is that they have to gather 10 endorsement from other 10 citizens, from 10 other citizens, can actually participate in local elections. And I think 800 people did in 2016 in China. And in 2021, there will be another round. And a movement like now can actually do, or we try to do our best to support those that actually stand for democracy and stand for independent state that actually is not an authoritarian regime. So I really hope that trying to mix the energy that Hong Kong is moving with this democratic event will be able to move a bit the conscience of China, because I'm sure that many citizens do not want this to continue, do not want China to clamp down on rights, do not want to would like to see the future of Hong Kong, the future of mainland China, a future of democracy and rights. But there is no ally and no way to hear those voices. So we do our best to actually support those that feel this way and maybe move a bit history in the right direction. And this was about Hong Kong.
So what Andrea means by this is also that now, so as we said, we will push for pieces of legislation to go through parliaments across the world. So, if we have a solution to a global problem, we'll use democratic means to try to bring it and implement it. This can be marches, petitions, referendums, civil disobedience, lobbying, and so on. But it can also be working with politicians already in power across the world to pass those legislations. They are the best place to do so. Or putting your label on politicians running. So if you have 10 different parties in Italy wanting to implement a measure on carbon tax and 10 different candidates in them, you can put the now label on all of them and support them as a quality check as well, and to say, they are committing to actually passing this measure if and when elected.
Yeah, so this is something that we look into for many elections in the future, and obviously the Chinese one would be an amazing and interesting experiment. On the second topic that actually we got many questions about was Iran. What's going on in Iran? So as I said in my story, I'm not the expert. Don't have yet a presence in Iran, and obviously given the political situation, it would be really difficult to develop one. But if you read the news, you could see that more than 100 people got arrested, and there have been protests all over the country, because basically the government decided to, basically eliminate subsidies on petrol that increased the cost of gas by 50% from one day to the other. And so basically citizens from all over the world, from all over the country, stood up and said, that's not possible. We are already in a dire situation. Obviously, it's been really tough time with the sanctions and so on. And now also this. And this has created crazy protests across the country, which the government obviously clamped down really heavily upon. So there have been reports of death, report of injuries. Amnesty has stepped in saying this is completely unacceptable. There is no proportional, answer from the government to the protester is completely disproportionate. This is something that, as I said, we cannot do much about right now. We'll see if in the future we manage to develop some presence in the region. What I can do is to call on every Iranian abroad to take a position, share the news, because it's not even super easy to find information about what's going on. So actually this was pointed out by a friend of ours. These are Iranian by origin. And we believe that it's really important to bring these instances to the attention of the global community. So on Iran and any other kind of regime that is clamping down on people that simply want to have a decent life, they are not asking for crazy things, but just asking for a decent life. We stand by you, we will support you, and we are happy to at least spread the news when we can, if we cannot do much more.
Sorry, I'm looking and answering two questions in the chats at the same time, so sorry for the multitasking. We got a question from Frankie saying, I need to understand, a thing is now a global spin-off of the Vote project. In some ways, the thinking is similar. So to Frankie, this is something we've been discussing a lot about in the last couple of lives. It's not. Vote is a pan-European political party filing candidates for elections. So Vote is, and we're not objective because we co-funded it, but an amazing way to solve European issues across Europe through electoral politics. Now is a global movement of citizens, not directly standing for elections across the world, because there's no global political system where people can stand for elections, that is pushing for solutions to only global challenges. Only, it's a small word considering all of the global challenges, and using democratic means. So as we mentioned, it can be pushing for a climate change measure in Colombia, France, and Taiwan, at the same time using the same means, and so on. We will engage with politics to the extent that we will lobby politicians, we will work with politicians, and we might put sometimes, ask politicians standing for elections at the same time to put forward our policies. But we are not an electoral party. And the key reason for this is that, again, there's no global political game. You can't solve global issues through politics. Politics operate at national or regional level, which is super important for national or regional issues. For global topics, we need something more. Sorry for the interruptions. I'm just trying. When it's a bit too long, I can't type at the same time.
She's jumping on every keyboard. I want to add something to what Colombe said. I think two data is also important to highlight. 44% of the world population does not live in democracies. So if you want to give a voice and trying to support those that are exactly as Chinese or Iranian citizens, these are not free democracies, right? So if you want to try to work with them and try to change things also in those countries, you cannot be a political party. Having said that,
Two other questions. Sorry. So one is in French, but I'll translate at the same time. Quentin is asking how we can work with local actors. So, for example, in France, you have the municipal elections next year to solve those global issues. So I think that every single actor is extremely useful in solving global issues. So I think from the moment you have a roadmap, so for example, on fiscal justice, taxing digital multinationals, and so on, you should work with every single actor that is relevant to the solution to actually pass them. So it can be business leaders, singers that are engaged in the cause, politicians from across the world, and a lot of power comes from the local level. And local representatives are the most trusted representatives in general across the world. So having them advocate for this, if these measures can be declined at local level, having them implement this measure at local level is absolutely key. So the French municipal elections will happen just after the launch of Now. So we hope we'll be a bit short on time. We hope if France is one of the countries where we will launch one of the free campaigns, and we're not sure about this yet, we will definitely engage. Otherwise, it would be up to Now membership to decide how to proceed as well for this. But engaging with actors will be key. The difference, and I'll stop talking soon because I need to drink a bit of water as well, but the difference between also a party and a citizen initiative is that as a non-electoral movement, it's much easier to collaborate with actors from across the spectrum. This means that we can talk to many political parties at the same time. We have no conflict of interest here to try to pass measures, whatever flag they fly, whatever pin they have on their labels. So you can be also very efficient this way. And you can also bring then business leaders, citizens, artists, activists, anyone interested. So local actors, super important. Andrea, do you want to answer to the second question?
Yes, from Michele, how can I take part in Now more actively? So it was briefly mentioned at the beginning. If you go on our website and you, for example, buy a membership or apply for a free one or just join the newsletter, you will see that every basically 2 weeks we send out newsletters, and we are preparing to fully involve our memberships from the 1st of January, when the platform for members will be released. So everyone that subscribed before the 1st of January, and obviously gradually after, will have access to an internal platform where probably will be a debate system. There will be a way to participate in our activities and a local way to engage.
Yeah, we'll also have on this platform organizers that will organize other people. So if you're interested in organizing your city, your town, your region, your country, you can also reach out. We won't be able to directly give you access because we're still setting up the whole thing. There's a lot of things to be done before January 1st, but we can start the conversation.
Exactly. So we need you to take action, to take part of this. So leave your email somewhere in the website so you get updates. Today we just sent a newsletter an hour ago. If you message me, I will resend it to you in case you missed it. But be part of this.
So basically, you sign up. If you can afford to, you get your membership. Otherwise, we give it for free if you just message us. If you want to start organizing people and recruiting volunteers, we'll give you the tools from the 1st of January and work together to make it work together. There's a lot of testing going on at first, so we might get things wrong at first, but we'll manage eventually. But there's also other ways. So as we mentioned, we have free campaigns: women's rights, fiscal justice, climate change. If you know key actors we should be reaching out to, we should be having a conversation with. If you yourself are extremely interested or an expert, reach out and send us the names. We will need to get in touch with those people. And as you can imagine, we have a month and 10 days. The work keeps on adding and the time keeps on getting shorter.
That's the fun part.
But so we don't think of everything. So any idea and any feedback is highly welcome at this stage, and we'll answer. So send us names and so on. And then we still need to crowdfund a bit of funds. So share, if you can, the crowdfunder. €1 is useful. Any amount is extremely useful at this stage.
Exactly. And you find every information on our website. And if you want to email us, you can type info@now.world. And there is actually the email you find also on the website. Yeah, .world is pretty cool. I agree.
I'm adding all of this in the chat.
No one said it, by the way. We just congratulating the team.
By the team, he means himself.
I got the idea of .world. Colombe is typing on her Instagram the email. We're gonna also gradually type it everywhere. Having said that, should we move to the next big topic, Colombe?
Yes.
Is your domain of expertise.
Can you introduce it? Because sorry, I'm trying to type without making the computer full.
We received many questions about rights, mostly LGBTIQ+, women's rights, but also about other groups. And so we said, okay, let's give a brief overview of our position on the topic. And as I said before, Colombe is a big expert on many of these topics. So she is the most, the best person to talk about this.
So I actually received the .world. Looks very cool. Thank you, Claudio. Actually, it was my idea.
No, Colombe.
It's true.
Colombe.
It was my idea, but whatever. That's another debate.
We need to vote.
So this morning I received a long message as well asking to discuss how we can promote women's rights globally. So one of the things we believe at now, and it's also many of the messages we've been receiving from many people, is that when rights are threatened in one place, they're threatened everywhere. So we see it especially when superpowers like the US start to crack down on women's rights, start to degrade and denigrate women, other countries feel legitimized to do so. They feel like there's less pressure from others not to do so. And so that's why human rights and rights in general are one of the pillars of now. We want to make sure that we launch each year different campaigns touching rights and to promote ideally all rights, but at first it's a bit hard, so a type of right across the world. So our first campaign, this will be the very first one we launch, will be on women's rights. We can't say too much, otherwise we won't have much to launch on the 1st of January as well. But the idea is that by launching this campaign across different continents, we will be able to show that citizens from across the world, from all continents, will launch those campaigns. We will push for rights to be passed into laws from across the world. When you consider the state of rights, I was asked also to give a super quick update on some of the data on women's rights. I mean, the gender pay gap in the world is above 20%. That's just one of the issues. In France, a woman gets killed by her partner or ex-partner every 2 days. 80% of women in politics in the world have been subject to sexual violence or harassment. So clearly, women's rights, first of all, and female rights concern more than half of the world population and need to be promoted across the world simultaneously. This is not an issue only for one country, one continent, or us individually. It's a global issue. So this will be one of the first topics. On LGBTIQ plus rights, we talked about it quite at length, I think, in the last live. This is also one of the ones we need to tackle. I mean, all rights need to be tackled at the same time. But here, when you consider that LGBTIQ plus people in some countries still risk the death penalty for partaking in consensual same-sex activities, I mean, it's a whole other game as well. So we need to make sure that this is decriminalized, legalized, and that rights are protected, that you have protections in the workplace, in your private life, in education, and so on. It's very hard to talk about it globally and in general because there's so many different aspects of rights. It can be and situations from country to country, and when you talk about violence, differences, salaries, protections, but we definitely want to tackle them. So if you're interested, also send us your ideas of first campaigns we should launch on them. We're always reviewing what we're doing. So just before jumping to another topic, we just got a comment that we have simultaneous channels and we should have a now channel. We should, but at this stage, we can't be doing everything. Yeah. So between creating campaigns, trying to keep up with everything that's happening, creating a legal organization and so on, there's a lot of work to be done. So we decided that we'll launch the now channels when we launch now, so on the 1st of January, so that we can actually focus on the work. And in the meanwhile, we're advertising from our private social medias. Apologies, I know you're receiving notifications from a bit all over the place. It's only for another month, but we just don't have the capacity to do something else.
And we like to keep a bit the suspense. I was a bit distracted with the answer because we lost Facebook, too many devices connected and one broke down. But we still have Instagram and YouTube. And I think that we can close with the last comment on the LGBTIQ plus side of things after the women's rights. On this, we don't have... You were distracted with this. We just did it. Okay, perfect. So Colombe is multitasking. While I was trying to fix, she covered everything. And maybe we can take 5 minutes of questions before jumping out and moving to the next meeting.
So a question I actually got is on the colors. Why we chose orange/red and blue. So Anna, that's one of your favorite questions. So go for it.
One of my favorites. So I talk about the orange first. There's actually our main color. There's not orange, it's color red, to be precise. And basically we use it to remind ourselves about the risk that a lack of cooperation across the world can pose to our existence. Because obviously corals are basically the first victims of the fact that humans didn't manage to curb emission, humans didn't manage to protect the environment, and because of that, the Great Barrier Reef is in danger actually. And I don't want to say that, but almost lost, according to the data that you see on our website. So we use color red to remind ourselves that we need to up the game. We can't continue this way. We can't continue to disregard the fact that global challenges cannot be dealt as global topics which require the support and the cooperation of the whole human race. And so we use coral red to remind us of that. Blue.
And it also looks good.
And it looks really cool. And the second color is indigo blue. We use blue because it's traditionally the color of international cooperation. So, for example, the UN has light blue. Other international organizations have dark blue, like NATO. So we said, okay, let's also put a reminder that we are, we are trying to unite people across borders.
And it's the color of oceans, which is also something very important. So yes, and to be completely truthful, we're both not very creative people. So a designer, Luli, who's absolutely incredible that we work with, was pushing also for those colors as they are highly energetic, and she has much better taste than us. So we trusted her.
Claudio is commenting from Italy saying, purple, that is our previous organization color. It was into bad luck, and now this new color reminds of death. Oh my God.
Claudio, that's a bit intense.
That's a bit intense. I don't know why orange, coral red. Because of coral, they are disappearing. I understand now. So this, I think
we'll turn it around.
Do we have any other question, Claudio?
I think that was mainly it. As we are already 10 minutes above the promised time, and hence late for another meeting. We should be closing it. I'm sorry that this one was a bit shorter than normally, but as we said, this week is a bit insane with everything going on. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to send it to us, and we'll answer either in a super short live on a social media or via message.
And let us know if you like this, because we like it, but I mean, if it's useful for all of you, I hope so. So thank you so much. Let's stay in touch, and if you can join already now, it would be amazing. If not, wait for the 1st of January.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.